Perfect. We are live now on the Generation Female app. Thank you. Thanks for bearing with me while we connected everything. So for those of you joining us, welcome to Generation Female and welcome to our panel, New Generation Forces for Change. So today I'm joined by three very inspiring young women whose names that you see on the screen. I think our objective for this panel was really to just showcase, the initiatives and the efforts by a new generation of young women around the world to promote positive change across a range of important causes. So we wanted to give a space to meet new female role models, essentially. So I'll invite our panelists to introduce themselves one by one. Maybe starting with Hannah. Please tell us, what you do, what your organization does, and why. And I know Hannah has some slides, so bear with me for a second while I swap it around.
Sure, thanks, Shireen. So while you're handling the slides, I can start by saying that I started something called a Zero Waste Challenge around 4 years ago. And that was really my little act of activism that I wanted to challenge myself with, just to see if it was possible. And it just opened up such a whole avenue for me. It was a new path for me in understanding our waste crisis globally. That it really forced me to act on it. And 2 years ago, I helped create a company called Muse. And what we do at Muse basically is that we're a smart system of reusable takeaway containers, such as coffee cups and takeaway boxes. And what you do is that you borrow and you return these containers across cafes all across the city. So the idea then is to make the journey and make the act of reducing waste a convenient one for anyone, whether it's businesses hoping to reduce their waste or whether it's users who want to reduce their waste impact. So, I mean, being on a zero waste challenge, it takes a certain lifestyle and certain type of person to do this. And, always lugging around extra things with me, bringing my own cup to places and boxes to get it refilled. But I realized, it's such a sticky point here that there is really room here then to create something that makes it easier for someone to adopt a lifestyle like this. So, I mean, as a user, it's really easy with our app. You find a cafe on our Muse partner network. You go into a cafe, order your coffee like normal, or your takeaway food, and then you scan the container and you can return it to any of our partner restaurants across the city. So this is really closing the loop and making it easier for that customer journey, whether it's from the office to work or any other location that's convenient for them. And our containers are made of stainless steel cups, and then we have wheat fiber boxes as well, always reiterating and finding better materials for our containers. And really, why would you choose Muse is we're saying to the consumer that you're not only saving waste, we're getting discounts across all of our cafe partners and restaurant partners, and to entice people to do this. I think people need other incentives other than a sustainability one. And we make it so convenient that, after lugging around this coffee cup, you don't have to wash it at the end of the day when you get home. You can just return it back to a cafe and they do the cleaning for you. So it's making that journey then an easy one. Where we operate is in Singapore and San Francisco right now. So we have over 40 cafes on our network. And since we started in 2018, we saved over 40,000 single-use items from landfill. So just from different events that we've done, and now we've grown with our restaurant network and our app. And there are other cities that we do want to explore. There's Hong Kong that we're looking at seriously, and other cities across the world as well. So we are expanding, and hopefully this whole trend here is going to grow, and people will follow suit, and it'll be an exciting one to share with you in the next year. Maybe we'll we'll have several more cities on board. So this is just the beginning of our journey. But yeah, this is just a short introduction to why I got into Muse and what Muse is. But please ask me afterwards if you have any questions about our system.
Thank you, Hannah. Thanks for that introduction. And next up, I will ask Nurul to introduce herself. And Nurul, you have a video, so let me know, do you want to, should I play the video first or how?
Yeah, so I think I chose this video because it's about what we've done in 2019, and I just wanted to get everyone in a mood of before coronavirus, the things that were possible, like what we did. So let's play it, and then I'll do an introduction after.
All right, got it. Give me a second while I...
We've got happy as well to get everyone in the vibe.
Yes, there we go. I have lost. Sorry.
So thank you everyone for watching the video of what the Codette Project did in 2019. The Codette Project is a project that I founded in December 2015, so it's been almost 5 years. And what we're trying to do is really to create an ecosystem to enable more minority and Muslim women, especially in Singapore and around the world, to get into the tech industry. The long-term goal is that one day we'll see 10% of the tech industry at every level be minority Muslim women. And that's just a reflection of the user base, the consumer base, and how many people we estimate in the world are minority Muslim women. And unfortunately, those numbers are not reflective of the reality, which is that we see less than 5% of founders in Singapore being female. And if you look at underrepresented communities, that number is basically zero. And that's a problem because women make up a lot of the people who make the decisions on how do we use technology every day, and we integrate it into our daily lives. And the Codette Project is built really around 3 main pillars. The first is on skills building. So you would have seen that we run a hackathon, and that's Singapore's first women-only hackathon, open to women of any age. In 2019, the youngest we had was 9. It was not her first hackathon. And the oldest was 44. And we had groups of mothers and daughters. We had women from all around the world. We had a woman who actually came from Malaysia, our neighboring country, just for the hackathon. And that was a real compliment really to the team and around the kind of ecosystem that we're building. And that brings me to our second pillar, which is community building. To build a community of women that understand that what we need to do is support and enable each other to get the success that we deserve, because often women, especially underrepresented women, not only do not see examples of ourselves, but don't have the support systems that we need to create that kind of success. And our third pillar is on storytelling. And storytelling is about reshaping the narratives that we see around tech. For example, if we look at tech and we look at founders, a very common founder story is that you have a founder who is male, who is often quite privileged, and who often has the resources to build something and is celebrated for maybe working 48-hour days. And if you look at that, a lot of that excludes women who are playing very different roles. It excludes women who are students, who may still be primary carers, who may be juggling a lot of different responsibilities. And we want to make it clear that success is something that women deserve to redefine for ourselves, no matter where we are and what stage of life we're at, and that all our definitions of success are valid. And I think that that's one of the main things that we've done. And one of the things that you'd have seen in the video as well is that we created a Success Looks Like This exhibition where we did a set of photos that you can see on Shutterstock. If you type in the Codette Project Shutterstock on Google, you'll see a set of photos which represents what tech could look like if it was more diverse and included more women. And that's me.
Thank you, Nurul. And finally, we have Divya. And Divya has some slides as well. So give me a second while I pull these up.
Sounds good. Awesome. Okay, well, firstly, thank you so much for having me on the panel. And I'm so excited to be speaking alongside such amazing entrepreneurs. Honestly, so humbling. So my name is Divya Santani. I am the founder of a company called Savvy Sapiens. And we are a personal and professional growth platform for, I used to say teenagers, but actually this has to be updated. It is now all young adults. So we do work with high school students and university students. And so next slide, yeah, perfect. And the reason I started this company about 2 years ago now is because I was previously I started working in the innovation space about 5 years ago, and just meeting some of the most amazing entrepreneurs and innovators and just really incredible people, I think, from across the globe. And it started, I guess, a couple of questions started burning within me. And one of them was very much, how do we prepare the next generation for what's to come? Especially a future that we can't predict. You know, they're calling it VUCA, volatility. It's going to be volatile, uncertain, chaotic, and ambiguous. And I think this year has definitely defined all of those for us. So I was thinking about this for a while, and it always kind of came down to one thing for me, and I was meeting people from across various different industries and different parts of the world. And it was always people skills. It was always emotional intelligence that seemed to be kind of the bedrock for success for most people. And so I started to dig a bit further, and there were three things that it seemed that a lot of leaders were looking for in their people. It was self-awareness, it was self-empowerment, and it was self-determination. So in a world in which it's no longer about barking orders and for everything coming top down, actually, how can people start to build and create and innovate on their own as well? And how can they bring those ideas top up? And I found that so fascinating. And so at this point, I mean, I had actually just moved in with my little sister in Hong Kong. And she is 13 years younger than me. And so she was about actually 12, 13 years old at the time. And I was watching her go through the school system. And now she goes to a really wonderful school in Hong Kong. But of course, it is still very much the system that I went through about 15 years ago. And education just hasn't changed that much since then. And you can look at the most progressive schools and still, you know, the case is the same. And I'm not saying that schools aren't doing a great job of trying to keep up, but I do think that there are so many other things that we can help on the side in terms of supporting teenagers and Gen Z as they are, enter the workforce and transition into that a lot more seamlessly. And so that's when I decided that I wanted to plug the gap myself, or at least help, because obviously, you know, not one person can do all of it. But I built Savvy Sapiens as a way to start to bridge school and what I believed would be the future of work for students. And since then, it's very much been a bit of a whirlwind. I started with doing a lot of in-person workshops in schools on topics ranging from design thinking and innovation to conscious life design. How do you start to bring self-awareness into your own university and career choices? And even neuroscience and mindfulness, and how do you really start to take charge of your own life? And, you know, focus and awareness and intention is something that we're all lacking these days. So how can you start to bring more of that into your life? So it was all going great until, of course, March, I think, is when it really hit schools in Hong Kong. And most of them obviously closed. And so I brought a lot of my resources online and, you know, had to pivot my business model as well. And it was great. You know, I started doing online talks and webinars, and I started doing a lot more private coaching, and I started launching online resources. And so I do have a podcast called the Savvy Sapiens Podcast, where I interview really interesting professionals. I want to interview both of you guys, actually. But yeah, on your own personal and career journeys, because as we all know, of course, you know, life is not linear as much as I would have liked it to be when I first graduated. It's very much like this. And so actually having adults that, you know, can speak in a way that really resonates with younger adults, share their own stories and their own failures and their own successes and how they got through those, and speak in a really honest, transparent way, I think is so critical for young adults that coming into the world having a more accurate view of what they expect from themselves. So yeah, I have a podcast, and we're launching an online program at the end of this month. And it's a lot of neuroscience, mindfulness-based stuff, but also a lot of self-awareness, growth work that I've seen in actually a lot of executive MBA programs, and also bringing in a lot of entrepreneurial mindset and innovation type skills as well. So that's exciting. Lots of change and lots of exciting developments to come. And that's about it. That's me.
Thank you, Divya. Cool. Okay, now that I've got the slide sharing out of the way, we can start our panel proper with all the questions. So I think Divya covered a little bit about this during her introduction about why this particular cause, resonated with her. So maybe Hannah and Nurul, if you could tell us a bit more about why this cause, and because I know both of you didn't always have a career in this industry as well. So how did you know when it was time to switch, and how have you found it since? So maybe I guess Hannah.
Yeah, I guess I'll start first. It wasn't an overnight thing. I think I had been, I'm based in Hong Kong. I live in a very wasteful city, so I see it front and center all the time. So it was something that was screaming at me every day. And then one day I decided to take on a challenge, like living a zero waste lifestyle for a year. And that really pushed me into learning more about the system. Curiosity was really what got me here. And starting that journey and taking on this path of then creating a company together with friends to start something that supported businesses and consumers was something that really motivated me in terms of, okay, what little impact can I make individually on a zero waste challenge, but now moving to businesses, how much larger is that impact? So, I guess it was building up for several years. My background isn't in sustainability, but out of curiosity, I think, like you were saying, Divya, with all these young minds and being aware of all of our surroundings, just being immersed in that and embracing that is really what got me into this whole path of sustainability.
Yeah, I feel like something that Hannah said, which is that it's not an overnight thing, really resonated with me, because with the Codette project, the initial start of it was that I had gotten some funding for what I thought I wanted the Codette project to be, and that initially was very different. It was going to be a 6-month-long boot camp for underprivileged women. But when we went out and we actually talked to people, we realized that it's not just underprivileged women, it's underrepresented women, and that's a kind of a much more complex web to untangle in terms of why. And then it was a move that we made to pivot from offering one boot camp to actually how do we figure out for women that are like us a way for us to redefine success on our own terms. And then that configuration where we moved from actually providing this is what you do to tell me what you want to do to get the kind of success that you imagine, and then to match that using technology was the thing that honestly changed the Codette project and helped us think about not just what we could provide, but who we wanted to be as an organization.
Thanks, Nurul. Yeah, I mean, I think that's very interesting that, this wasn't what you set out to do at the start, and it evolves along the way as you go along. What would you say is like the biggest misconception that people have about the diversity and inclusion movement? And, what advice would you give to other startups or small companies just looking to improve their diversity and inclusion policies so that, we can do better by women that are underrepresented or different groups?
I think the biggest misconception is that diversity and inclusion is an endpoint. It's not. It's a journey, and it's a journey that should really transition to justice and equity, and that's the next part of this conversation. So I think for everyone, it's actually really about looking at the data firstly, so seeing what it is that you do, whether it's HR, whether it's if you're a manager, if you're an employee, no matter who you are, there's something that you can do to push that forward, and not to stop that push, that there isn't a stopping point where you're like, we've done enough and this is enough diversity, this is enough inclusion. All organizations need to just keep continuing on this trajectory, because I don't think it's possible for any organization to be like, we're completely fully treating everyone equally in every single way. There's always something that can be done better. And part of that is also looking at redistributing the power to make decisions to people that need it. And I think just those two things would help a lot. Yeah.
Thanks, Nurul. I think that's a very useful way of looking at it. That it's not a tokenism thing. We just hit this quota, but it's a consistently evolving kind of journey. To, I guess, given that inherently we have our inherent bias and privilege and way of seeing things, so it's a slow shift rather than an overnight this happens.
Exactly.
Yeah. Maybe just jumping on to Hannah. Well, COVID happened. How has it, do you think it has impacted the low or zero waste movement? I mean, with all this mask and everything that's just single use, we're being hygienic, we're being sanitary. How has that impacted you or the work that you're trying to do?
I definitely think, yes, COVID has set us back in terms of a lot of the perception. I mean, obviously, hygiene, health and sanitation, it comes first and foremost. We need to protect people. There is a need for face masks, protective wear. All of this is increasing. And I think it's just understanding that and being upfront about it, being transparent that, yes, this is increasing, but how can we use this as an opportunity to pivot and find unique ways to reduce our waste then? I mean, in terms of Muse and how we've adapted is, yes, we've had less foot traffic at our cafe partners, but we've had really high usage rate of food delivery. So that's what made us shift our attention then to food delivery. And then 2 months ago, we started our collaboration with Food Panda, just seeing the amount of takeaway that's increasing during this time. We saw an opportunity there then to fill that gap. So it's being creative in these certain situations. I'm always an optimist, and I'd like to think that we are going to solve this problem together. It's just going to take a little bit more time now and a little bit more adapting to the situation. But I do see, I think it's a positive thing where the younger generation really see it now. And, we have a lot of younger people who are choosing career paths in sustainability, or at the very least being far more conscious consumers. So it's that trend and that direction is going in the right way.
Yeah, definitely. Before this, I was just on a panel with ladies in tech-related startups, and there was a panelist who runs a finance app, and it allows young people to choose which companies to invest in. And she was also saying that, based on their data, a lot of how young people decide what to invest in is also the company's values and missions and things like that. And maybe that's quite inspiring for all of us, I guess. And I guess while we're on the topic of young people and the pandemic, I'm going to turn the mic to Divya to ask how this has, I guess, impacted the education system. Do you have advice for parents who have their kids, the school's been disrupted and things like that? What's your take on this?
Yeah, for sure. It's all happening right now. It's so much easier to say things in retrospect, but we're very much in the midst of all of the change and the turmoil. I will say, of course, so many things are popping up, so many questions are popping up that hadn't come up before. So, people taking gap years. Do I even go to university? Do I just start working now? Do I start my own business because I already have all the resources I need, which is just a laptop, right? So it's really incredible to see, I guess. There was some research that just came out on students in the UK, and it was like a crazy number. Like 1/8 of students are looking to become entrepreneurs this year because there's no point in going to an online university. So I think it's amazing to see actually the drive and the hunger and the appetite to really do something a little bit risky, but I think in a very uncertain environment, there's almost nothing you could do that isn't risky. I think if you go the traditional path, that could be really risky too. Who knows if you're going to get a job in 4 years. So I think a lot of students are having to take these decisions into their own hands. And I think that's scary because it's very easy to follow the path already prescribed to you, right? Finish high school, go to the right university, get a good job. But now with everything thrown up in the air, they're having to make some really hard decisions. I mean, do I even go back to campus or do I stay in Hong Kong, for example? I have a lot of clients who are really wondering what to do with the rest of their next 3 or 4 years of university. And so I think there's a lot of ownership that's having to be, I guess, really cultivated by them. A greater sense of responsibility, a lot of very tough questions. And I think at the end of the day, it's building resilience, of course. I love this book, Anti-Fragility, and I think we're all learning to become a lot more anti-fragile, which is not just bouncing back to where you were before, but actually getting a lot stronger from it. And I can see that students are very much so. I mean, I watched my sister, she's been in online school for the past 6 months now, probably longer. In Hong Kong, we've had it for much longer than the rest of the world, of course. And we've had protests before that, right? So she's actually been dealing with a lot of uncertainty for a while. And, just no complaints. She just does it. And of course, it's exhausting for kids to have to be on their computers all day. They're not used to it. They're not in the working world yet. They're not used to sitting by their laptop all day. And it's really tiring physically and mentally. And I can see it grating on her, but she figures it out. She adapts and she, speaks to her friends about it, and they're very open. I think this generation is completely different in the sense that they do look at their mental health and they do track their emotions. My sister literally uses an emotional tracking app. And they are very willing to have that discussion and open up about what they're struggling with and what their vulnerabilities are. And in a way that, I mean, I'm only 13 years older than her, but I don't think I ever did with my friends, and perhaps the generations above me didn't as well. So, I think it's hard to say what the impact is going to be on the education system truly, because, you could say like, sure, in the US, there's a trend towards homeschooling now. Great. But I don't know how that's going to turn out. And I can't say that whether that's better than actual schools. But I do know that kids are having to grow up a little bit faster and make decisions that are, they wouldn't have had to otherwise. And I think, all parents can do is really stand by them and support them and pivot and adapt with them and be flexible, because what worked before is not necessarily going to work going forward. And we already knew that, but now it's like really being put to the test. And I love the idea of agility. So it's about being agile, really.
Definitely. I mean, I think even more so today with all that's been going on, that parents recognize that their experience, doesn't really prepare them or, give them that ability to advise the younger generation. And maybe, kids these days are more like resilient than we give them credit for in their own way.
Absolutely.
So you guys are all, female founders in your own way. I wanted to just take a step back and ask a more general question. What are some of like the biggest challenges that you face in setting up a new business, building a new brand? And what advice would you have to women who might want to consider going down this path? Anyone wants to start?
I can start. So this is something that I do get asked a lot. And my point of view is this: it's that you have to start by understanding what your needs are first. And that is, for example, how much savings do you have, and how much do you need to earn per month to lead the lifestyle that you want to lead? And for me and my team, the realization is that honestly, the Codette Project can't pay any of us the amount that we would need. So we don't pay anyone. I'm still a volunteer. My entire team's a volunteer. We all have jobs, full-time jobs, on top of the work that we do on the Codette Project. And that is also in some ways redistributive. So we're able to give everything that people donate directly to the program. So all our programs are free. It is really understanding what your long-term needs are as well. And I think if you don't start from that often, I see with a lot of female founders, there is so much passion, there's so much dedication, but in the long term, there is always so much burnout because people are just giving and they aren't taking care of themselves and their needs as well. So my advice would be to really understand what your needs are and track that. Like, that is your KPI. Like, track your needs. Like, how much time do you need to spend with your family? How much time do you need to spend by yourself? Like, what do you need? And then from there, figure out what kind of company and what kind of business you want to build.
Thanks, Nurul. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, often, women are told, that we're always giving and things like that. But then we have to apply that in a business context as well, that what do we need? It's not just, anyway. Hannah, do you want to go next?
I really resonate with that. I think I really agree with you, Nurul. And it's, I mean, being in a startup space, it's creating an environment as well that makes it a safe space to share. And I think we really lack that in a lot of workspaces, and in terms of really looking out for burnout and ensuring that everyone is, you know, their wellness is being looked after. And so, I mean, my advice, I guess, is just to create an environment where it's not so scary to speak up about your emotions and to share. I mean, being in a small team, we're a team of 7, so we have to spend a lot of time with each other. So it's for a new business like us, is making sure that the team is gelling like that.
Thanks, Hannah. And Divya?
My advice? You know what? It's really hard to say. Everyone's journey is so different, but I would say, you know, I do a lot of mind stuff. So I really am passionate about self-limiting beliefs. And by that, I just mean, I think we tend to hold ourselves back. So really just being honest with yourself about what your perception of yourself is, and is it even accurate? And actually, if you don't think you're very good at certain things, like for me, definitely going into it, you know, accounting and just in general, just business building for me, I was like, well, it's not really my strength. It's not my background. My background's in marketing communications. But then ask, you know, like, okay, fine, be honest with it. Okay, you don't know about that? Fine. Find someone who is good at it and then learn from them. And you have to just be, you know, willing to just be really humble, I think. And I think in the beginning, I was very much a little bit on my, not high horse, but I would say I was just really afraid to ask for help. And I just didn't want to admit that I didn't know everything and that I couldn't do everything myself. And I couldn't Google everything and figure out everything on my own, because of course you want to be resourceful and you want to be clever about it. But at the same time, you're also just human. And to your point, Nurul, it's about also just being realistic with yourself about what your needs are. And then you don't want to burn out. And also human beings exist to help each other for a reason, right? So use people in the sense that like they want to help you and you add value to each other, and it's collaborative, and you don't have to go at it on your own. I think that for me, that's been the biggest learning lesson, just knowing I don't have to do it on my own just because I'm a solo founder.
Thanks, Divya. I mean, I think, you know, what you say is definitely very true. You know, often, yeah, if you need help, ask for it. You don't know it's impossible until you at least ask, right? So that's worth trying. So we're pretty much almost out of time. So I just want to end really quickly with a last question. So how do you guys stay motivated? How do you know, I feel like in a career that's very purpose driven, and you know, when you're fighting for a certain cause, sometimes it can be very demoralizing or challenging. I mean, looking at the amount of waste there is out there, I think if I was Hannah, I feel so demoralized every day, like trying to do my part to just change things in this space. So how do you guys stay motivated? And maybe we'll start with Hannah then.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to be a little bit crazy in a sense that just being a little bit in this space anyway. I think just having that endless optimism, I think is always a good trait to have. You know, it's always easy to look at all of the problems that we have, but you know, my whole idea of psychology of change is you know, we don't want to make people feel bad about the choices that they make. You know, it's always looking at the positive and how an individual can be part of this solution. So I mean, I've created this narrative that I certainly believe in terms of, you know, you have to believe that there is impact at the end of it. And even if it's a small thing, like in terms of my own zero waste challenge, I still have people coming up to me and saying, oh, I brought my own lunchbox to work today, you know, and that's a win for me. You know, just taking those small wins and carrying on with it. But you know, if I didn't have that motivation, I would probably just pack up and go home. You know, it's certainly an uphill battle every day, but you know, that's the challenge that I really revel in. And you know, it's about making it fun, I guess.
Thank you, Hannah. Nurul?
I think it's important to understand that motivation isn't constant, especially if you're a founder. There are definitely going to be days where you're just going to sit at home and cry, and that's okay. But I mean, everyone's nodding, so we all get it, right? But I think that a big thing is that even if you're the only person doing the work, even if it kind of seems hopeless, like it really did for us in the first couple of years, where we had to really think about it and I'm a solo founder as well. I have a team now, but we had to think like what to us is a success, and one woman then became a success. One woman coming to an event is a success, because then we believe that she will create change that will be amplified and that she's a catalyst for change. But we also know and accept that we won't see the 10% throughout the tech industry change, maybe even in our lifetimes. But I had to sit with that and accept it and say, well, even if that is true, that's okay. And I'm comfortable with that. It doesn't mean that my work doesn't matter. So it's about really just kind of sitting with yourself and understanding who you are and how you'll accept the fact that your work is important, even if you don't see the results immediately.
Thank you, Nurul. And Divya?
Yeah, I would really agree with that. Definitely lots of crying. Yeah, I think for me, I mean, I'm quite lucky. Well, I mean, when I was going to schools at least, but as even with my clients, I get to see their faces, and it makes a huge difference when I hear, even just a student saying that she could handle something a little bit better because of something she learned, or you see their eyes light up when you teach them a topic about, or something about their brain that they didn't know before, and they feel better about themselves for it. I guess, I live with my sister, so she's my constant daily motivation, and I practice a lot of this stuff on her, and I test, and she's my guinea pig. So actually I feel a bit bad for her, but it keeps me motivated because I can see her grow and her thrive and her feel better and more confident in herself. And honestly, it's amazing because I will exchange that information with her, but then there are times when I need to hear it too. And she reminds me and she says, well, it's that reticular activating system of yours. And I was just like, yeah, when they pick things up and I guess I don't have a teaching background. So it really is, for me, it's like the reward of seeing them like really learn and internalize. And then, like you said, they're going to be catalysts for growth elsewhere. And I'm never going to see that multiplier effect, right? I'm never going to see the butterfly effect of what happens from what I'm sharing with them. And they may not get it or even care about what I'm saying now, but they may get it 10, 20 years down the line. And that to me is enough. Like just knowing that maybe a mind shift somewhere will happen and that they will have a tool that they didn't have before. For me, it's everything. And it justifies my work. So you do have to find your own KPIs. Yeah, you have to kind of define success for yourself. Like you said, I really like that. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Divya. And thank you to all three of you. It's been such a great conversation, and that 30 minutes really flew by for me. And, there's still so many more questions that I had that I didn't get a chance to ask, but, really appreciate you guys being here. And I think for for everyone on the Generation Female app as well, I think you guys are all on the app. So if anyone wants to reach out or connect with all of you, they can do so via the app as well. And I think, I'll just leave with a quick summary of, or not summary, I wouldn't be so ambitious as to say that, but just a few key points that I think, resonated with me or I was able to write down quickly enough. So I think, as Divya said, we live in this VUCA world, volatile, uncertain, challenging, and I can't remember the A.
Chaotic and ambiguous.
Okay. Chaotic and ambiguous. Well, and it's really not a linear journey for any of us, basically. But I think we should always remember to know our needs and put our needs and give priority to our needs. Ask for help if we need, and celebrate the small wins as well, and define our own version of success. All right. Thank you so much, ladies. I'm going to leave this call now. And
thank you so much.
Thanks for joining.
Thank you, everyone. This was really fun.
Yeah.
Take care.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.